With your hands laced as I have shown you, do it in a way that it will just be consistent. So I'm going to slide my needle down to the base of the stitch, counterclockwise wrapping it, and onto the needle, off the old. Now when I first learned to knit, I learned to knit throwing my yarn with my right hand. I knitted that way most of my life. But when I saw how fast this was and how efficient it was, I retaught myself about 10 years ago. I've been knitting since I was 18. Well, it seems like only yesterday. Now we're at the end of our row. What does one do? Pull the stitches down at the end of the row to lock them in. Take the needle into the left hand, excuse me. There's that big ugly I was telling you about. He must be there. Yarn's coming straight down. Go to the back with it. You're going to insert your needle so that it is above the big ugly, hanging on with the pointer on your right hand. And there we go. If you don't do as I'm telling you there, at the beginning of the row, you'll end up with this little blob. Also, you will probably end up with an extra stitch. You will also end up with extra stitches if you insert your needle like that, then you wrap it, then you forget you wrapped it and do it again. Then you'll get an extra stitch too. That's called a yarn over. We're not even going there. So just insert your needle, wrap the yarn, pull up the new loop, take off the old. How much easier can this be? Now you can see how we can possibly have this at the end of the day. Look how much we've already knitted with just 2 rows. If we were using those little dinky needles I was showing you to begin with, my goodness, we wouldn't have hardly anything yet. We wouldn't even have the first row in width and length. Isn't that pretty? Once done, we'll go back and we'll pluck these out. I'm going to leave you for a while now, and I want you to continue to knit as I just shown you. Don't worry, you can't hurt your yarn unless you cut it in 1-inch pieces. Just keep trying. Take it out and do it over if you don't like it. However, there's many ways to fix things. So don't fret, just have fun. If you're not having fun, think about how to have more fun. Okay? Talk to you in a moment. Bye-bye. Well, as you can see, I've been knitting for a while, just as I hope you have been, and I've made a good deal of progress. I've been thinking of other things that you should probably want to know. And some of the things are, why am I using these needles with this long tube? Well, circular needles are all I use. There's nothing you can't use them for. If you buy sticks, they're limited to doing back and forth knitting. You cannot knit in the round. If you have double pointed needles, that's what double pointed needles are for, knitting in the round. But they're a lot more cumbersome. I invest my best dollar into the best circular needles I can find. At the present, these are the type I'm using. I won't give the name, just in case next week. These aren't the best, but generally I've been using these here for about, oh my goodness, 8 years, maybe more, and with no complaint. As I'm knitting, I'm scooching my work as I go to speed up the knitting. I don't have to totally stop. See how I just scooched it? That's another thing you need to do. Another reason I'm talking to you about using larger needles on a scarf is if you have beautiful yarn like this and you pack it all in with a little needle, you won't really be able to see anything. Also, a scarf is supposed to drape. Generally, a sweater is not supposed to drape. And when you look at a yarn label, it will recommend a needle size. Well, the needle size is for a balanced stitch, or the most balanced stitch that yarn can obtain. That's usually best done for a sweater. We're not making a sweater. We're making scarves. This particular, just knitting back and forth on this size 36 needle, it's called a garter stitch. It's just plain knitting, just the knit stitch. We will discover more about different stitches that you can do later. this point, I'm going to show you how to bind off. I have a reasonable amount of yarn left, but as you see, I'm locking the stitches in each time. I'm pulling down. If you don't, it'll be like an accordion, and you'll think that it's about half the size that it is because it's all scrunched together like this. Well, that's okay looking, but it sure is prettier when you can see exactly what's in there. Look at all those beautiful colors. When I tell you to pluck out the yarn, what I'm talking about is when you have lofty yarn like this that have long tails or string or furry, if you pull at them, you'll see those little things come to the surface more, and that is much more attractive. Let's bind off. This is definitely not long enough for a scarf. I like scarves to be 60 to 72 inches long. But for recording's sake, let's learn how to bind off now. Holding the yarn as I taught you to do, over all the fingers, under the ring finger, insert your needle and knit a stitch as you had before. When it's come to binding off, now I'm going to knit another one. We're going to play leapfrog. How many frogs does it take? The least amount to play leapfrog? 2. We've knitted 2 stitches. Now we're going to leapfrog the first stitch over the second stitch that was knitted. Hey, we just bound off 1 stitch. Knit another one. Aha! We have 2 frogs again, or 2 stitches. The first one leaps over the other one and off. This is leapfrogging, or binding off. I call it leapfrog, just so you can remember. You will never have more than 2 stitches on your right hand needle, and you'll never have less than 1. We're going across the row now. Also, don't do it too tight. If you do it too tight, it won't match the cast on edge whatsoever. Be gentle. Nothing's going to get away from you here. This is something like what you used to do when you did pot holders. Remember those days, girls? And boys. I do have some gentlemen knitters out there. Quite good, I might add. Aha! Here's the question I get the most. I have a stitch left on my needle. What do I do? Very simply, just pull it out and cut it off. Cut off just enough to leave a tail that you can bury the end with a yarn needle. When I'm talking about a yarn needle, I'm talking about a sewing type needle with a large eye. You will thread it or use a crochet hook or use your fingers and just weave that piece of tail right through into your knitting towards the center. I do the same thing on this end. If you do it on an edge, it thickens the edge a little bit and it doesn't hang as nice. Now, here we go. Looky there. Same size. Looks nice. Too small for a scarf. But it's a nice little sample piece. And believe me, I'll finish this. Isn't it beautiful? I hope your piece is as beautiful as this one. And remember, you don't have to use multiple yarns. You can use the boring, ugly, straight stuff, or you can just use one of these. But whatever you do, make it so it makes you smile, and you want to finish it. Thanks for listening to me. Happy knitting. The video you just watched, and I hope enjoyed, was the first in the series of the 9 Novice Knits. If you go through the entire series, you will be able to do just about any kind of knitting your little heart desires. So stick with me and order your next video as soon as you can. This is just for you in Lakeside, Marblehead, Ohio, 9523 East Harbor Road, Lakeside, Marblehead, Ohio, 43440. You can call me at 419-798-5499, or you can call us on our 800 number, which is listed here on the bag. Our internet address is also listed. See you soon.